Emily says, I have a question on Romans 9 where it speaks to God's sovereign choice. She says, I struggle with this passage because Paul talks about God hardening hearts and loving Jacob and hating Esau. Paul talks about God choosing to show his wrath through objects he has prepared for destruction. And if God has already chosen those to whom he'll show mercy, how can our prayers even impact or make a difference in the world? I also struggle with imagining our loving God hardening hearts. Can you help me understand this passage? What say you?
Yes, now we need the rest of the hour for this one,
Indeed.
Susie.
Mm-hmm.
No, it is a difficult. I can understand why that question is answered. In fact, out of all the issues that someone might be concerned about, I mean, that's got to be near the top. Because when you read that, you just have all kind of questions emerge in your mind about God and his nature and so forth. But let me give you the premier example of hardening hearts, and that has to do with the Pharaoh, because this sort of really gives us the biggest clue on everything here. Now, 10 times in the text of Scripture in Exodus, it tells us that the Pharaoh hardened his own heart. And also, 10 times we are told that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. So you've got both of those realities there. However, here's the key. The Pharaoh hardened his own heart 7 times before God first hardened it. And that's an important, critical thing to consider. It's evident that God hardens on the same grounds as showing mercy. And the point that I'm making is, if men will accept mercy, then he will give it to them. If they will not, thus hardening themselves with a calloused heart, God is just and righteous in judging them. And so what it all comes down to is that mercy is the effect of a right attitude, which the Pharaoh should have had. Hardening is the effect of stubbornness or a wrong attitude. And the example that is often given here is, it's kind of like the clay and the wax in the sun. The same sunshine that hardens one softens the other. And the responsibility is with the materials, not the sun. And so, the point that I'm making is that God is not the bad person here. The Pharaoh was. The Pharaoh hardened his heart before God did. And God, as the just creator and judge of the universe, has that prerogative. But that doesn't mean that there's something wicked or evil with him. Now, what about Esau? It talks about God hating Esau, and, that's kind of a hard thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The word hate actually should not be taken to mean that God had the human emotion of disgust or disdain or, desire for revenge or any other kind of a negative emotion like that. God did not have a negative psychological emotion that burned against Esau. Rather, the word should be understood as the Hebrew idiom that it is, and that means to love less in the outworking of God's plan, to love less. We see the same thing in the New Testament in Luke 14:26, where Jesus said, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his father or mother, his wife and children, his brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Now, this word does not communicate the emotional feeling of hate. Keep in mind that in Jesus' teaching, we do not have the prerogative of actually hating anyone, because he told us that we're to love even our enemies. As well, Jesus would never violate one of the 10 Commandments, honor your father and your mother, and that's repeated in the New Testament, by the way. And so the point is that Jesus was not teaching his followers to disobey God's law. Rather, the word hate simply means to love less. In other words, we are to love our parents, yes, but we are to love them less than we love Jesus. Jesus gets supreme love. And I think the same meaning is in Romans 9:13. We might even paraphrase it this way. In comparison to my great love for Jacob in the unfolding of my covenant plan, my feeling for Esau, whom I love less, may seem like hatred. But it's not real hatred.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Very much so. So interesting. You imagine how many people have stumbled over that passage just because of not understanding it. Wow, thank you for doing that.